Welcome to this week's Kingdom Calls, our weekly podcast on GAA matters, and in particular this week we are sticking with our Kerry senior football team. And last Sunday, of course, Kerry met the All-Ireland champions Armagh, and what a result for Kerry. They downed the champions in no uncertain manner with a superb second half performance in particular, and they ended up 8-point winners and are now into a semi-final where they will meet their old adversaries Tyrone. Now we will do a preview on Tyrone next week, so we'll stick with Armagh and that unbelievable performance from Kerry against all the odds. And indeed there's a few guilty members here of my panel this week, whom I think Jack O'Connor had a right go off some of them, but maybe not these lads. First of all, on my left here, I've got former Kerry great, former Kerry All-Ireland medal winner, three, he has Celtic crosses. That's John Kennedy from Ashty. Of course, he was involved in the three in a row between 1984 and 86. And he also contributes to Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, so I think you know the voice, if not the face. How are you, John?
Good, Murt.
Next we have the Messiah himself from Tarbert, straight in here from the bog after footing turf today, so he looks in good shape and ready to go. Freelance journalist, does a lot of work for the Kerryman newspaper, and that's John O'Dowd. John, how are you today?
Not too bad.
And then we have a special guest flown in from Canada this week. I suppose the assistant editor or the deputy editor, whatever I like to call him, of the Kerryman Sport, and he's been with us obviously last year. If you're watching Kingdom Calls, he's from Dua originally. He's now living in Ballybunnan, and I'll give you his postal address one second. Any complaints? Controversial at times, but very knowledgeable. Despite his rough and gruff exterior. That is Damien Stack.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Damien. And the last member of my squad is former Mitchell's man, now domiciled in Ardfert, top Ardfert coach. He's involved in academy coaching as well, so Jack loves him because he does something for his county other than give out. He did predict a draw last week, so he's embarrassed about that. I said I wouldn't remind him, but you're very welcome, Clive O'Callaghan.
Cheers, Mark.
Yeah, that's good. So that is our panel, and we'll be with you now for the next 45 minutes, or 44 at this stage, and we will discuss all aspects of the match as we see relevant. So first of all, I'm just going to go around the panel pretty quickly. Lads, what a performance. Unexpected in many quarters. I know we tipped last week that Kerry would win, but really it was, everybody appeared, and even we were nervous about it, and then they produced this sort of a performance. John, very, very pleasing to be a Kerry man.
Oh, great day to be Kerry man, Murt, and we felt they'd win it, but no one could envisage that performance and that level of performance that we got. And from the word go, from the warm-up, you could see it. There was a focus, they were driven, and no more so than Shawnee Shea and David Clifford. But look, everybody, even the switch beforehand, Michal Burns not starting, Mark O'Shea starting, we saw when he went off, they left everything on the pitch. Which was, I suppose, what's being talked about apart from the victory is that 15-minute spell. It was inspirational, it was exceptional, top drawer stuff, and probably something we have never seen before from a Kerry team in a sustained period against the All-Ireland champions. The kick-outs alone, they couldn't get their hand on the kick-out from one of the best kickers in the game in Ethan Rafferty. And if we didn't win it clean, we won the breaks. We were hungry, we were ravenous, we were driven. And a superb performance, and it was backed up by a huge Kerry crowd. The lads called from during the week, and they certainly responded. But in turn, the team responded to the crowd.
Absolutely. John, your initial impressions, I mean, what a performance. Some of the unsung heroes, some of the young guns came on, played their part. It was, we'll talk in detail about the 10-15 minutes performance shortly, but overall, in it at half time, looked when we were 5 points down that we might be in trouble, but then when they absolutely took off, it was incredible to watch.
Yeah, mesmerising, absolutely. Like from the very start, you could see that they were up for it. They competed, and I felt probably were a bit unlucky to be a point down at halftime. Like we basically gave away the goal ourselves with a mistake between Shane Ryan and Dylan Casey, but it didn't affect the players. Like they just put it behind them, both the two individual players involved and the rest of the team, and they just carried on regardless. They silenced a lot of critics, both inside the county and outside the county, and I felt some of the analysis coming up to the game was unfair and bordering on over the top, because nobody can question that the performance against Meath wasn't up to standard. Like you could ask any one of the Kerry players themselves and they'll admit that. But as if there was not going to be a response to that. You know, whether you win or lose at the end of the day is often in the lap of the gods. But I felt there was too many questioning of the character and the desire and the fundamental right of some of these lads to be wearing the green and gold jersey.
Their ability,
which was mentioned in one particular quarter, which was embarrassing and totally out of order and not entertaining and not funny in any sort of a way. Like teams...
Funny now,
yeah, correct. Like teams can win and lose matches, but I think a lot of people forget, number one, we've no divine right to win All Irelands, and there's a lot of really, really good teams. And if you go back from 2021 onwards, semi-final, lost to the winners, 2022 champions, 23 get to the final, lose to the winners, 24 semi-final, lose to the winners, 25 were in the semi-final again. Has there been a more consistent team in the country over the last 5 years? I would say no. Again, to have so many of them written off, to have management written off, to have all and sundry written off really was, it's just not right. You know, when you come out and make a statement that only one player in the team is worthy of
You're talking about Joe Brawley there.
Yeah, correct.
He said to the air yesterday in his own podcast that he's writing for fun and entertainment, and it's before the match, and what harm in doing that?
I don't think anyone finds that fun or entertainment to have everybody written off on one team bar one player. This group of players won the All Ireland 3 years ago, so they aren't joke figures. Do you know, you could say this year that Dublin were a one-man team without Conor Callahan. Signs on the last day when he wasn't able to start, they lost. They're out of the championship. But that doesn't make Dublin a one-man team either, because they have brilliant players like Kieran Kilkenny, etc. Is Shane Walsh a one-man team for Galway? No, but he's their best player. But like, you could have made that comment several times over the last couple of years that Galway were a one-man team.
Mayo,
It was just easy, lazy analysis out to get a reaction, and it's
and it did.
And it did, but the person who said that has egg on their face this week, whether they want to admit that or not.
He doesn't eat egg apparently, no scrambled egg. Listen, Damien, did you feel, and you were in the down in the cauldrons of the bowels of Croke Park afterwards, talking to Jack or interviewing Jack with the rest of the journalists, did you feel even from listening to him that it was personal, there was hurt there?
I was absolutely hurt, and even before we get to Jack, on the pitch, Shawnee, the man of the match, he basically pointedly mentioned being written off, and he mentioned back home. So, that was definitely a feeling. And then I think one of the first things out of Jack's mouth was one of the greatest motivators is proving people wrong.
Yeah. So
I think that definitely drove them. He referenced the Joe Brawley article. He referenced another article by
former
Kerry player, one of his former players, as it happens, and yeah, there was just that sense of mission to Kerry on Sunday. Even in the first half, when they were very good in the first half as well, and you had Gavin Moy absolutely driving the thing forward, Sean Shea obviously, Clifford. Even in the first half, like a couple of weeks after that, David's he's not going that well. But when you look at it, he was involved in 6 points in the first half. I mean, he only scored one, he had a couple of whites, but he was involved in 6 scores in the first half. It was those big characters stood up to be counted in that first half. even in the first half, it was a heroic sort of performance, a sort of there was a sort of defiance to the performance. I felt straight away that these boys were like, all this chat, all this sort of thing, even the sort of fact that, you know, I think Paul Ganey referenced it below here after the league game against Armagh, that they were feeling that hurt from that game last year. So all of that kind of came together and it just emerged into this amazing performance. But I think, like, just as journalists, we're very, when a manager says something interesting, it's mother's milk to us. But I think we were all not taken aback by Jack's demeanour, but
bit surprised.
A little bit, because like we were chatting about it before. It's like since the Jack of 2004 to 6 and 9 to 12 is not the Jack that we've had the last 3 years.
He was cranky Jack. I think Mihal called this Jack Spiky Jack.
Spiky Jack.
So you're cranky Jack to Spiky Jack.
Yeah, you know, like, and I think like we kind of saw Jack with his grandson after the Munster final, and it's like, oh, he's the doting granddad. He's not as cranky as he used to be, or there isn't that edge there.
He's retired now, you see, that's the difference. And he has time to deal with football. Back then he was teaching.
Exactly, and now, like, we all, maybe we all mistook the fact that he has more time to decompress and all that.
And read your columns in the paper.
Exactly. That'll definitely make him cranky. But just I think we maybe mistook the sort of the calmer demeanour for maybe that he didn't have that age. He absolutely has that age. He has, as we all said, that spikiness, and I think that's going to be huge. That's huge for Kerry. Because I think there was one line he referenced. He said that after the Cavan match below in Fitzgerald Stadium, he was in the dressing room and he said to the boys, I've been here before, written off this, that, and the other. So he was the right man in the right place at the right time. But
Clive, a lot of people say that Jack is old school, and he, as Damien said there, he referenced 2006 and 2009. But I think Jack, while he was spiky post-game and he was hurt by what was said, particularly by ex-players, he referenced the fact that Dublin players, when Dublin were beaten the Leinster, they didn't go looking for heads. You know, they don't, because out of loyalty to the jersey. But I think Jack kind of, he's got Keane O'Neill, he can do the coaching. There's so many lads there, and Jack is a great communicator, and Jack is able to bring a group together. And we'd even rumours at the start of the year about Shawnee Shea not getting on with certain players, etc. The guy was carrying an injury, he didn't play for Kerry. But those rumours, I remember saying it to Gavin White, in Killarney before the Munster Championship, when we were talking to him, and he said, we heard them too, and we never know where they came from. So all these rumours, do you start those rumours? and first of all, and second, because you are a man who sort of goes fishing and gaslighting, but are you, you're the only probably, well, John is as well, although he tries, non-journalist here. You don't write for a living, right? You lie, you don't lie for a living. But do you think that Jack is right to criticise? Do you think that people are entitled, ex-players and pundits are entitled to hold an opinion, or can that go too far?
I think a lot of that outside the county would have been perceived as Kerry being cute whores, that they were, playing Kerry down, and but inside it obviously rankled with the team and the management that it was going on. I even seen Kieran McGeeney comment after the game. He says, we didn't believe it because that was Kerry being Kerry, doing it to themselves.
He's married tomorrow, Rally, from Ballymac,
I think if you take it back a week, and Jack's made a line after the Cavan game that going to Croke Park now they were going to throw the shackles off, and the players are going to play with a bit of abandon. And we saw that played out, and that's what we're talking about Jack's management. The players did. Dylan Casey went up the field early in the game, turned over the ball, lost it up by in front of the hill. You'd say, okay, he's probably going to go back now and not come up again. He kept driving forward. He played David in for a point in the second half. The goal we gave away, Shane Ryan had the ball on the tee within seconds of that error and pinged the kick out, and we had the ball over the bar, rapid again on the other side. So the players didn't go into themselves. Dylan Gainey had a couple of shots, didn't go over. He didn't stop kicking. So Jack had given them that belief that no matter what happens, it's the next ball, you are good enough, and it will turn. And I think it played out like that. They just play with a bit of freedom, as he said the week before. They're going to play with freedom, and they just let mistakes lie and got on with it, and we saw the end result.
Is there, like, just from what you were saying there, like, is there a sense that collectively, the press, fans, everyone, do we underestimate to a certain extent how much Croke Park would play to Kerry's strengths under this rule set? Do we not factor that into it enough? Maybe
so. I suppose we saw glimpses during the league final. That was our only game there so far, and we were really looking to see how it would play out. And it's very evident. Like there was a clip in the second half. Brian O'Bigley's point to me was when it was around the 52nd minute, maybe his second point. He could have kicked with his right. He turned back in. He took a play and kicked with his left inside the old arc. And that would be unheard of against an Northern team that you get that much space or time to execute. Now the mind to turn, take a play, and then kick it off your weaker side. Micheál Burns came in from the Cusick side, sold his man a dummy, left him for dead. Under the old rules, if you sold your man a dummy, there was another three waiting for you.
Yeah.
So, and we're going on about the lead, 5 points down, probably last year, 2 years ago, to an Armagh or Tyrone or Donegal. The game is over. Whereas we went 5 down to 10 up. And the new rules helped, but it helps a good footballing team, and we have some very, very good footballers.
Yeah. Did you make a lot of money out of the bottles you collected? I understand after.
Oh, but someone did.
Someone did. No, I thought it looked like you. I thought you. Sorry. Yeah. So listen, we've got to get around to why Kerry won, right? I'll be on to John O'Dowd on the stats of that. Incredible. Now I'm around longer than all of you, I think. I think I'm the oldest in the room. Ken, you're not far off me. But anyway, I'm the oldest in the room, and it was the greatest 10-15 minutes of football that I can remember. There were a few occasions, 2009, back in the glory years, 78, all the goals against Dublin. There were times when we have hit good spells before, but I thought that was unbelievable. Now, first of all, on kickouts, we eliminated, as Maurice Brosnan outlined in the Examiner and in the Examiner podcast. I was listening to him last night, and he gave a very good account of the amount of kickouts. I think John will have them shortly, and the amount of points that came from kickouts. But to eliminate Rafferty, whose kickouts pinging them to the full forward the whole time out there on the wing, they were beautiful. But to be able to beat that by putting 4 across a line of 4, and that's probably why Mark O'Shea was introduced instead of Burns, because he's obviously taller. So you had O'Brien, Sean, who had a great game, you had Joe O'Connor there, you had Mark, and you had Graham O'Sullivan. So they're all tall, strong lads, and they contested everything. How did you see that?
Yeah, you're spot on, and I agree with what Clive said earlier on. Things went against us at different times, but we kept going. There was a real focus about it. Joe O'Connor coming to midfield in the second half, it was a super performance by him.
He came after Mark went off, I think.
Mark went off, yeah. And he wasn't really in the game.
Mark was cramping, I think.
Yeah, but he turned it into the match. If we were told before it that the two Armagh midfielders would be substituted.
Unbelievable.
Grimley
and
Creeley. Rory Grogan, who's been a vital cog for Armagh all through, didn't get the goal, but he was largely anonymous during the game. Their main men were marked out.
Rian O'Neill was very well marked.
He was well marked.
Only Connaughty seemed to...
Connaughty did a bit of damage to us, and Tiernan Kelly maybe going forward. But
I think that Rian O'Neill, it felt like he was coming into the start of the second half, and then we took over, and that was the end of that. But in fairness, I do think he had a good game, in fairness.
But I think a lot of the switches that the management make, some days you make switches and they don't work, other days you make them and they do work. But this was a high pressure game. Speaking to people on the way up, having a cup of tea, and more than hope than anything we were going up. We were hoping for that performance, and I said it last week, we needed a season defining performance from both the team and management, because you lose, you're gone. And the focus was there. Look at Micheál Burns coming on, the determination. This was a man that was driven, I mean, you know, the 2 points he got, the ball he fielded, but the confidence to sell a dummy and to go forward and kick it over the bar in a corner.
When his first possession, John.
Exactly. And then the way he lit it up. And Paddy, of course, like, you know, I've been accused of saying that, you know, Paddy, that there's more than Paddy Clifford playing, but Paddy makes this team click. The time on the ball.
You say that Paddy was more valuable to Kerry than David.
Yeah, well, he is.
He's the only man worthy being called a footballer. Paddy. Did you say? Oh no, sorry, someone else.
I said it after the Cavan game. You know, when he came in, he gave a ball from the middle of the field with the outside of his left leg over towards the press box. He took 4 Cavan players out of it. It was heads up football, but it was the ability to execute it.
Yeah.
And the simple things he did the last day, his calmness on the ball.
Yeah.
Gavin White at centre back, like.
He almost got his brother through, didn't he? But Dylan Ganey, they clashed. There was claims for a penalty, and it was a great pass. And it was
possibly a pass for David.
It was for David,
really,
yeah.
To be fair.
And Dylan decided that I'm going to interrupt this and stop this Clifford carry on and make it a Clifford Ganey carry on. And they clashed. And
but there was questions about our panel too, and you know, you see Evan Looney coming in, like John said earlier on, you know, just took it on, but he did what he does for the Crokes.
Yeah, and it was the Sigerson Cup.
Yeah, it was one thing to do it in the county final or in Fitzgerald Stadium, but to win to Croke Park in a pressure game and to do that and take, you know, confidence on the ball, but it was typically Crokes, really comfortable on the ball, won't give it away.
Is that the Crokes team that he turned up and did he play them last weekend? Yeah, that's a good game. Go on, continue with about it. Was Evan Looney playing? No?
No, he didn't play, no. Sean O'Brien in the middle of the field again, you know, a real workman-like performance. The question has been asked.
He's a cousin of mine now, Sean O'Brien.
If all the players were available, Sean O'Brien wouldn't be on the 15 and maybe not be, he mightn't be playing at all. But look at what he did for his confidence.
And John, is there a sense that, like, we were talking about players being cranky and feeling written off? Like, I don't know, my doubts were about the panel, that we were so far down that we were down the, you know, he said if he was, you know, Barry Dan was there, Dearman, etc. And those 2 midfielders came on and they beat the All-Ireland winning midfield from last year. And like they were expected to be blown out of the water, and they blew them out of the water. There must have been a sense from them too that they were that they had a point to prove as much as anyone. Yeah.
Like, it's frustrating for a player, and we've all been there. Like, you're on a squad, you're waiting for the chance, and the competition is so high. You're inside in training, and 'tis monotonous, 'tis boring. But when you get that chance, then it is a cliche. Like, you have the chance to make it and to get the jersey.
Did you ever feel that yourself?
You did. Like, I was part of a great Kerry team, and look, you're waiting for the chance. If we don't take it, if you play poorly, you might get a chance for how many games again. Yeah. But like these guys,
you took frees for Kerry at one stage, didn't you? When the free taker was off.
But there's just one other point, John. Just in terms of, like, we've been. Has the injuries been good for Kerry football in a weird sort of back and forth way? Because now we know, would these guys have got those minutes? Would they have those performances under their belts? If it hadn't been for the injury crisis that we're
there's no doubt about it. And every management team, they'll go with their best 15, and you'll give fellas game time. But it's difficult to come in 15-20 minutes. You know, whereas the real test of a player, how good is he when you need him to deliver? Yeah. You know, we didn't do it above and Tullamore. No. But then again, we felt a lot of us that Meath were beaten by Louth. You know, where did they come from? Not a great side, it's a bad result. But we saw what happened last weekend. Suddenly, Meath are there now. They're competitive, they're a big physical team, and they beat a good Galway side.
John, finally, would you admit, before I go on to John about that incredible 15 minutes, would you admit that your sort of anti-Crokes bias, that it was disproved on Sunday with the performances of Mark O'Shea, Evan Looney, Micheál Burns, Gavin? I mean, Gavin was outstanding, and Tony Brosnan would have been only he was injured. He got injured, I think, Friday night playing SD, did he? He did. But, you know, it was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, look, it shows there's quality in Kerry Murt, and, you know...
Crokes or Kerry?
And there's quality in Crokes, like I've said it so many times. Crokes are an example. I trained Kilmurray Brickham for a few years, and they were using the Crokes formula with the coaching from underage, and the quality people involved with them. And you can see it, the people involved with Crokes, every one of their players, when they go into Kerry, set up.
Yeah.
They have all the basics.
When they're born, they don't get a soother, they get a football.
They're comfortable.
They chew the football.
Left and right, they have good hands, they have vision, all that you need. And that was shown the last day. But you have to say, on a management point of view, you know, a lot of criticism, and I can see where Jack came from. You know, unfair.
Yeah.
A lot of people that played it.
But a lot of people in Kerry don't want Kerry to win. Do you realise that?
A lot of people that played it, but they won't be critical. We don't agree with some of the things Jack did. I was one of the said of Graham O'Sullivan. I didn't agree with his role, but in the last 2 games, Graham O'Sullivan's really performing.
Absolutely, yeah,
so you have to say, when you're inside, you have to go with what the lads are doing because they see it every night.
Exactly. John, that 15 minutes, that glorious 15 minutes, when every Kerryman thought that he had died and gone to heaven, although in your case you'd have gone down, not up, right? All the people were talking about Kerry and that, you know, the fantastic, once they got up the field, they kept going up the field, they kept kicking points, they didn't miss. Tell us some of the stats about that.
Yeah, I suppose the first thing to say, and you kind of touched on it there, is after about 20 minutes when Tom O'Sullivan went off injured, we were missing at that stage Tom, Mike Breen, Tyke Morley, Diarmuid O'Connor, Barry Dan O'Sullivan, Tony Brosnan, Paddy Clifford was still stuck on the bench, Paul Gainey stayed on the bench. That's 8 players. Now they mightn't all have been in the starting 15, but the majority of them would have been in the starting 15. And if anyone had told you at that stage, after Tom had limped off, that Kerry are going to score 14 points in a row in 15 minutes against this Armagh team and are going to destroy them and pull away and win convincingly, they would have been told to lie down and take a break, and the doctor
You'd
would
have been brought to the Lynch Award, I'd say.
You mentioned there the possible penalty incident when Paddy Clifford's hand pass to Dylan Gainey. In that 15 minutes, that was the only time that Kerry were turned over in possession. Once in 15 minutes. And it was unlucky because, it probably wasn't a penalty, but at the same time, it was the only time we lost the ball in that 15 minutes. In the kickouts, Armagh got 2 out of 11. We won 9 of their restarts.
How many of them went over the line?
I'm
sorry, this might be a bit too
No, there was 2 sideline kicks. They were aiming for Andrew Murnan a lot. On the touchline, and Kerry were well aware of that.
Mark was going up with him for that.
They got 1 free from one of their Rafferty's kickouts, and they had 1 catch from Jarly O'Burns. That was it. During that time as well, and I think it might be forgotten because we haven't really mentioned him yet, Shane Ryan had 3 kickouts. And if you remember what happened with the goal, all his 3 kickouts in that 15-minute spell were the very same thing. They were short, just outside the 40-metre arc.
But very quick away.
But it just shows his self-belief and his self-confidence. He didn't retreat into his shell after the goal, the mix-up between himself and Dylan Casey that led to the goal. But that was the kickouts. The most amazing thing is the possessions. In that period of time, Armagh just had 22 possessions. In that 15 minutes. 4 times they had the ball basically. Twice there was 2 wides. The other 2 times, one was a turnover by Joe O'Connor going all the way back, and the other was a breach of the 3 up by Rian O'Neill when he tried to launch an attack. He had just gone over the halfway line without realising. We had 117 possessions.
117?
And gave the ball away once in that period of time.
You were never great at maths at school,
when Dylan Gainey, for that possible penalty incident. So 6 times the amount of possession we had. 12 out of 14.
So repeat that stat again. 100 and what?
117 possessions.
And they had?
22.
22.
That's excluding the kickouts now from both goalkeepers.
Yeah.
In general play. So we had 6 times the amount of
And what did we score in that period?
We scored, we had 13 shots and scored 12, scoring 14 points.
Yeah.
Armagh had 2 shots during that spell and had 2 wides.
2 wides.
It was basically faultless football. I don't think you can get a 15-minute period with any team in any situation. And you're not even talking about the opposition, this might happen in a challenge match or something in lower leagues.
The intensity of and cauldron of Croke Park and All-Ireland.
This was an All-Ireland quarter-final with a somewhat depleted team against the All-Ireland champions. And to do that, we lost the ball once, as I said, in that period of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
how much of it do you guys think is down to the new rules? Because I've seen different managers say at various times that when a team gets a run on this rules, it's so hard. This is probably the most extreme version of it.
Yeah.
But is it down to the?
I think the clearest thing, what it showed, and it's not that your own kickouts are the most important, but if you can nail the oppositions, if you can keep them where they are and they can't get out of their own half, and you have the players to take advantage of that. The biggest thing was the variety in our attack.
Yeah.
There was a couple of incidents where we either caught the kick out or won the break, one pass and a score. So like 2 possessions.
Yeah.
But then there were other times 16 possessions for 1 score, 18 possessions, 9 possessions for 3
So we were
scores.
patient as well as the quick one.
And the last score, which put an end to the 15 minutes of absolute magic, was Graham O'Sullivan after 26 passes.
That's a long time. Morris Brosnan was saying today about kickouts in the Examiner, I was reading it, that kickouts kill. I think it's a very good way of putting it, kickouts kill. If you don't grab either primary possession or the breaking ball now, or if you can't retain your own kickouts, you're dead in the water. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and just going back to that 15 minutes, and we're talking about Hall Burns. You probably have the stat, but I think he won 3 breaks and 1 clean possession in that 15 minutes. It might have been 2 breaks and 1 clean possession, but you know, we were talking about I think maybe it was you who mentioned that. Oh, they started Mark O'Shea for the height.
Yeah.
Well, Michal is. I mean, he might be 5'10", 5'11". You know, he's not small. But
Only 5'9".
He's not a massive guy, but like he was winning ball over his head.
With stilettos, he's 5'11".
Yeah. But like. That's just, it was just this unbelievably magic 15 minutes, and you've referenced Mark Shea,
Graham O'Sullivan, Joe O'Connor, Sean O'Brien.
and Sean O'Brien. You know,
Unsung heroes.
We're talking about probably the 4th and 5th. Well, maybe that might be. But you were maybe 3rd. No, it won't be 4th.
Jack Carey is in there as well, by the way, isn't he?
4th. You
wrote that last week, did you?
I didn't write
All
that.
right, okay,
I wasn't here. 4th and 5th. Kerry started midfielders.
Yeah.
And they're dominating the All-Ireland champions. Yeah. I think just that alone.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
We moved on. Clive, as an Aki corner forward yourself back in the day, and you had 2 uncles who were incredible. Tony O'Shea and Derry played in the 60s against Galway, and I think they were both sent off to one day in the game as well, weren't they?
That's correct. Yeah.
They were, they go down in history as the only 2 brothers to be sent off on the one day, although the Cliffords could be, but they haven't been. If
John and Tom Kennedy were potentially sent off for Asti back in the day.
They were, that was a North Kerry Junior B or C final. Anyway, Shawnee O'Shea, the man had been injured during the year. He only played 7 or 8 times for Kerry this year, including league. And he comes up with a performance and Jack praised him after as being the spiritual leader, and you could see the way, and himself high-fiving or the equivalent of with David Clifford after one particular score. It was incredible, the leadership of that man. He was back in his own defence as well as being going forward. What do you think of Shawnee and his performance on Sunday?
It was a top-class performance by him, in fairness.
12 points, wasn't it?
12 points, and from the off, from the very minute he was looking to pin.
And in the first half, he kind of kept us in it. That might be too rough an analysis of because we were always there with them. But I mean, when we were struggling for scores, 8 out of 13, it's a lot of scores.
He took the game to Armagh from the off, and he's that type of player. You know, he's saying he's working back, and he does tackle back. He tackles ferociously hard. He's work rate, not just the scoring.
8 games, by the way, he's played in 2025.
He is a massive leader for the team, and when he's not there, it's felt as well. I suppose we're lucky here in Kerry, and go back. I was just thinking of his performances, even last year in the county championship, covering a couple of against the clubber. He was absolutely sensational. I think he got 14 or 15 points against St Brendan's outside in Beaufort in a championship game. He's just a brilliant footballer, whether it's club or county. His leadership, he massive score off his left foot again in the second half, the last day for a 2-pointer. He set the tone from the start. I know obviously David is outstanding as well, and David was laying off scores, he was setting up, he was taking 2 or 3 men with him. But Sean, it was a top class performance, and it really, we were apprehensive. We were waiting for the game to start. What was going to unfold, and it was very evident early on that he was there and he was going to fire.
Is there like a case made that Armagh misread it in the sense that they maybe focused too much on David, and because they had the Cambridge in front of them and they had all these guys dropping back, and I think there was about 2 or 3 on David at most times.
I think looking at some of the scores the last day, there was very little Armagh could do. I think looking at a couple of David scores, McKendrick could do no more. He was on his boot as the ball's being kicked. He was flat out down his boot.
He moved to his right and he solos with his left, and he you think he's going to lose the ball, and so does McCambridge, but he's gone to that, and then he's got that yard or two that when he unleashes the kick, McCambridge is diving on grass. He's not even next or near his boot. I mean, that's the act. One question I want to ask you, because you're a tall young fella, right? Sorry, you're not. But when you saw him kick that point, and I've noticed this when he kicks points, how high do they go? I mean, how high was a Chinaman? But this, how high up does he go? It's the highest kicks. You talk about, the slitter, what fellas do in hurling. But, balls just going over the bar, maybe 6 foot. He is a good 6, 8, 10 feet over the top of the post, up into the sky. I saw the camera trying to follow the ball, and the ball is big in football, obviously. Where does he get that? Is that power?
It's power, athleticism. I think even if you look at some of the goals he's got done through the years, like the power and the shot is, he can place them, he can be silky and classy and put it into a corner, but when he wants to kick and put power into a shot, it's ferocious. And the same, he's kicking points to his height, but if they're not accurate, you can be as high as they like. He's absolutely ferociously accurate, and both feet. So he's taken probably 2 or 3 men to watch him as well. Maybe that freed up a bit of space for, Graham chipped in with 2 points, Bruno Bigley chipped in with 2 points. Other lads, they were worrying about Davis and Gavin White. It freed up maybe a bit more space, but I don't think Armagh, barring the kickouts, I was surprised that they didn't have, we lose a couple of kickouts here in the bounce, we have a goal.
There's a plan B.
There's a plan B. I saw Rian O'Neill had kind of come out from his position, coming towards the tail end of that period, and he was beckoning Rafferty just to kick it down on top of him to change it up. But they didn't seem to have a plan B. It was to Merlin over by the Hogan, and they persisted with that to their cost.
Yeah. But if you look at it from their point of view, they had to be shell-shocked. They had to be, it was so hard for them to react.
The rabbits in the headlights.
They were.
We were shell-shocked.
And it's been mentioned here about 2009 and the first 10 or 15 minutes against Dublin, when Pat Gilroy came out with the famous startled earwigs comment. Armagh were 100% startled earwigs for that 15-minute period. They basically could do nothing right. Nothing went their way. They couldn't win kickouts. The chances they had for scores, they couldn't get them. They couldn't stop Kerry from scoring. They couldn't turn over possession. Basically, nothing went right for them in that whole spell, no matter how hard they tried. Maybe they could have varied something a bit different, but I think it was just such a juggernaut. And sometimes when you just get momentum as the other team, that there's just nothing you can do about it.
But Kerry pulverised them in terms of the scoring returns, the efficiency once they had the ball in that period. That's unheard of, and there was no goal in there. It was all points.
It wasn't just that 15 minutes though. Kerry's rate of return throughout the game
was 70 something, was it?
78%, and
I think only about 6 wides in the whole game.
It's about 1, 2, 3, 6 wides in the whole game. So it was that 15 minutes was the kind of the apostles of it. The whole game was.
I'll bring John in a minute. I want to ask you, Shane Ryan. His performance was unreal. And I looked at the Kerryman today, as I normally do. I'm not a bitter man. And I decided to read the player ratings by Damien Stack. And I couldn't believe a 10 out of 10 performance, 9.5. Why did you dock him to half? And did you give the reason? I didn't have time to read it because obviously I was ringing Clive to see would he sell me a few plastic bottles.
What did I... You always have to leave the room for
Further improvement.
If you,
Did you blame him for the missed kick out?
I think he. Was it with Shane or Sean?
Shane.
I would say.
Come on, spit it out.
I'd say maybe 60%, 60-40 with him and
Dylan.
And
Did you think that Dylan didn't?
I think when you look, it's easy saying it when you're watching back a replay on TV, but you're looking at it, you're kind of thinking, Armagh were really pressed up at that stage, and I think even if Dylan got possession from that kick out, he would have been under ball. So I would have just, I think the better call would be to hike it out. But look, that's hindsight.
What did you give Shawnee, by the way? A 10?
Shawnee, 9.5.
9.5 as well. No 10 for Shawnee.
No.
After what he did.
No, it's just you always have to
You
do
were
a little
body. Yeah. David Clifford is the only footballer, and Shawnee is only 9.5 out of 10 men.
Well, he didn't score a goal,
All right, so he scored 32 points,
yeah, exactly.
and because he didn't get a goal, like he's a player.
But you have to do. I mean, I don't know.
How
long is a piece?
Because Messi or Ronaldo and
how long is a piece of string? But what is our 10 out of 10 performance? I mean, it was 10
out of 10 performance is 12 points in an Ireland quarter-final, come back after injury, right? A spiritual leader according to his thing. Even the spiritual side of things, I know you're not spiritual or religious, but the spiritual thing, he's a spiritual leader, he leads the team, he scores 12 points, he keeps it in it, he kicks 2 points, he kicks the first 2-pointer or the first score this year off his left foot. In an All-Ireland quarter-final. He could have done it off his right foot, he did it off his left foot, the only one.
Murt, I think the interesting thing about Sean O'Shea's overall performance was that anyone who was in Killarney the week before against Cavan, the signs were there. Yep. There was an absolute intensity in his demeanour in the game against Cavan, winning kickouts, harassing players for turnovers. Even in a game that Kerry were winning comfortably, he was really, really up for it. And Gavin White had said after the Cavan game that he had been missed the week before against Meath for his leadership and for the way he talks to other players. That was massive just to get him back. But I think one fella who has become one of the biggest leaders on this team over the last 12 months, we haven't mentioned him massively today because there's so many people to go through, but Joe O'Connor is now, he's a player that is feared by the opposition, because when he goes on these runs, he has the power, the pace, the strength. Could have got a goal. One of his points clipped the top of the bar on the way over. He's now a serious. He's now a serious scoring threat as well as your top-notch midfielder. Yeah,
he wouldn't get 10 out of 10 from Damien, though, would he?
Well, I'm not sure anyone would more. That's the
But this is it. This is why.
What is perfection?
I know a singer who would. Now, John, tell me this: the Kerry supporters, they got a bit of stick for not showing up, and then we get to a stage where Paul Ganey spoke about it, Jack spoke about it, but David Clifford, in particular, man of the match, when he said, "Listen, we need our supporters to show up." They did.
Yeah, it was a huge, we hadn't heard it already this year, when the
No, I didn't hear the roar as much because of Timmy and Billy, the roaring they were doing. But if you ignored their roar, you would get the...
Yeah, it was brilliant. And, Kerry supporters, when a team is down when they need it most, and that has happened before, they come out in their numbers. And it's brilliant for a team. When the team feed off the crowd, but the crowd will react to the way the team are playing. It's a two-way system. And the last day, the way they started, the crowd got into it, and especially against the All-Ireland champions. We weren't playing, with all due respect, Cavan or Meath or somebody or Clare. We were playing the All-Ireland champions in a must-win game with our backs to the wall. And John illustrated there the amount of players that we were missing. Yeah. An incredible performance, and fair play to the Kerry supporters. That has been said about it. It's inexpensive, up and down the country, week after week. But I think Clive said it last week. When Croke Park comes, Kerry supporters travel. And they did, and they'll travel for time.
They do, and they make money as well when they go to collect bottles.
Does Philly McMahon, I think, in the Indosport podcast, was saying he didn't like that David was calling for the crowd to come up. What did you make of that? Or that he kind of seemed to suggest it was kind of a sign of weakness, or
he did,
that David shouldn't be thinking about
Yeah, so be concentrating on the game.
So, as a former player, what do you
I
think of that kind of theory?
suppose you look at it inside the Kerry camp. It was obvious the crowd that would have been Tullamore. It was fairly small. They were sparse.
You got wit as well, and you hear that wit.
But when you look out at the stand and the terrace, and there's a small crowd there, and things are not going well. Obviously, it was discussed, and two of the leaders brought it out. You could see it as a weakness, but they turned it around to be a positive.
Yeah.
And you could see the last day when Shawnee kicked, the passion, the way he turned to the stand, the fist, David jumping in the air like after scoring, Burns, all these lads, the crowd, they actually turned to say thank you. And I think afterwards, I saw a clip, David coming out and he's signing autographs, taking selfies. That's what it's all about.
Actually, one of those selfies that took with a woman, if you spotted, which I thought was class, she didn't have the settings right on the phone to take it, this elderly lady, we'll say, and he actually sorted out her phone for her and actually took the selfie with him in it and gave her back her phone. I mean, the guy, this is after one of the biggest games, a powerful performance, the adrenaline was still flowing, or whatever, and he can do this. The man is just unreal. He is a true Kerry footballer, but there are 25, 26, 34, whatever is in the panel, very good footballers as well. Now we're going to have to wrap, lads, so we've 2 minutes left, actually a minute over, but we'll give it 2 more minutes, and this got to be quick. This is a pleasing win, a great win, but as one of the players said afterwards, we don't have, in the words of the great Paddy, we don't have the canister yet, right? We're 2 steps away, but we've got to win the semi-final. It's going to be a tough one. We'll be previewing Tyrone next week, so we just, is it important now that feet are on the ground and that we get a few of the injured players back?
Oh, vital, I think, and Jack and the experience, Clive said it earlier on, huge experience there, and they'll get back. The important thing is the likes of the Paul Gaines, maybe Diarmuid O'Connor, Mike Breen, how we see Tony Broston. You need everybody. Tyrone are going to be a different game again, but you need everybody back. I've no doubt the feet are already on the ground. This was a super performance. We park it, we move on, and we look forward to the semi-final.
John, what would you think? Paul back, and of course...
Yeah, well, Shane Ryan who said that it doesn't matter a damn the Armagh performance if we don't go on and win the All-Ireland. So I'd say before they even left Croke Park the last day, Jack would have had their feet firmly on the ground. We've nothing won yet, well, apart from the league and the Munster Championship. It's the big one that we want.
Why are you bragging about the league and the Munster Championship? Nobody wanted to win the league. Everybody, including Donegal, had a handbrake on. Ashley would have won the league this year. Oh, sorry, he beat the Crokes. And then the championship was good, but we nearly stumbled against Cork.
No matter what final you get to, when you're in the final, you want to win it. But yeah, feet firmly on the ground. Probably a realisation that 15 minutes is not going to happen again. Yeah. So you've got to get a more consistent performance, which Kerry were consistent in fairness over the 70 minutes last year. But just for the next day against Tyrone, totally different type of opponent. Yeah. They're possibly coming into the game in the position we were coming into the quarter final with. Yeah. And they are a really good team. They were, we'll go into it more in detail next week, but we do need to get players back. We do need to get more options. The more the merrier. But just before we finish, a great moment at the end of the game, the last day. It hasn't really been mentioned because they were only on a couple of minutes. But for young Tomas Kennedy and for Tom Lee O'Sullivan, they both were on the pitch at the final whistle. They got the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, and it's fantastic for those 2 players to be a part of it.
But they didn't get 9 out of 10 from Damien. Damien,
they weren't long enough to be rated. Mark.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
It would have been when you played with Dua, were you on long enough to be rated?
No.
I admire your honesty. What about you going forward? Is there now, and we'll discuss it next week and we don't want to too long on it, but do Kerry not have, and Jack in particular, we haven't beaten Tyrone, they beat us, the COVID year, 2021.
Did we not beat the year after
beat
the
them?
COVID year?
We did probably, but look, in terms of the big games in 2003, 2005, Clive would remember them. We have this thing with Tyrone, or they have this at minor level, at under 20 levels. So, Jack again has a cause, surely.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. the kind of outside noise that they kind of drew upon was that the Kerry weren't going to win the All-Ireland. Now it's kind of swung the other way. If you meet any Kerry's who are at to win the All-Ireland now, we're kind of feast or famine as a fan base in Kerry.
Yeah.
So
the betting has Donegal, by the way, 5-4, Kerry 6-4. So it's very tight. Yeah,
and that's fair. But I think that, whereas they were drawing on what the fans were kind of saying as a motivation, I'd say they will just be ignoring it entirely, and because they'll have to because Tyrone are just that's going to be its own thing, and like I say, like Dowdy said, they're the Kerry in this situation.
Clive, in 30 seconds, if Tyrone beat us, are we useless again? Are we hopeless? Can't play football? Are we a one-man team?
Absolutely not. I think after the Meath game, Jack was saying, lucky we have a game next week to get out of the system. And I think Sunday we were saying, thank God we have a break for 2 weeks, because I'd say what went into that game emotionally from the players, outside of physically. Needs.
Jack said mass, I think, or something. Did he? Sunday morning. No.
Someone probably said mass, but they need a big come down and next week to get it up. But I don't think the 3 or 5 games with Tyrone come into it at all. It's totally new groups. We've beaten Tyrone since they've beaten us. No rules. But if we go and beat Armagh, Tyrone, Donegal and Meath, it'll be some All Ireland to win.
It'll be 4 Ulster teams in a row to win an All Ireland. Well, assuming Donegal beat Meath, we kind of do. But who knows what that?
The thing is, the emotion and the cause, that can really only be utilised maybe for one match. Because as Clive said, it takes such an effort.
Very draining.
Very, very draining. That's why they need the 2 weeks. The next game or games won't be about emotion.
David Clifford told me he's eating chicken and rice.
They'll be about performances and ability and consistency over the hour. They won't be about emotion.
If you remember after the start of the Earwigs in 2009, I think we'd Meath in the semi-final.
We didn't play great.
And it was a miserable wet day and all the rest of it, but it was, it would call it workmanlike.
Just have the job done.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right, lads, sorry to interrupt the discussion, but that's 52 minutes of pure gold, I would say myself, from listening to you. He made a lot of sense for once. He had 15 minutes in the middle of it of unbelievable stuff. You didn't score 14 points. You didn't have 117 possessions.
And no 10 out of 10 performance.
And no 10 out of 10 performance, because there's a man here who believes you can get 9.5. There's always room for improvement. And that man believes he can go to heaven. Anyway, on that positive note, we'll say goodbye for this week. But don't miss us next week. We'll be out Wednesday night and we'll be talking about Kerry and Tyrone. The old adversaries meet again. And we'll have some nuggets. We might even have the team for you. We have moulds everywhere in Kingdom Calls. And of course, we debunked the Jack Barry. Do you remember that? All of us, bar the man who went for a draw and Kerry to win after extra time. That was Clive. Got the prediction right last week. So I reckon we're in Jack O'Connor's good books. Bye for now.